Use a word that rhymes with wussy. Can he do anything that is over the line? Let us turn to our political panel. Former Clinton White House special counsel Lanny Davis and Roger Stone, who worked for Trump. He worked for Reagan, George W. Bush, even Richard Nixon. He's got a brand new book out next week, Jeb, The Bush Crime Family. He recently published The Clintons' War on Women. You never want to have Stone writing a book about you. Roger, it's a sad commentary, isn't it, when you've got thousands of people jammed in an arena, many of whom are begging a guy to use a vulgarity?
No, actually, it's our pop culture. Look, Donald Trump is the greatest show on earth. He doesn't drink. He doesn't smoke. He's had a phenomenal career. He's unscripted, as Bill Donahue said. He's unhandled. He's unmanaged. And the American voters find it refreshing. Does anyone really think that our political leaders don't speak like this behind the scenes when they're not on camera? Of course they do. Harry Truman did. Richard Nixon did. Dwight Eisenhower did. It is a reality, Mike.
Lanny, when you see footage like that, are you saying, great, keep it up, this is exactly what Hillary wants to face in the fall? Or is there a part of you, be honest, that says, you know, this is frightening politically because he's really energized his base?
I say keep it up, Mr. Trump. I hope you're the Republican Party nominee. His negatives among the general population, not the Republican base, is higher than any other person running for president. So as a general election candidate, we always extrapolate at this time of season from what the base of each party is doing, as opposed to the general election, which is much different. I think even Mr. Stone would agree with me that when you're in a general election, you have to appeal to center-left, center-right voters who are the swing voters. Your base is going to be with you no matter what you do. Having said that, I think that Mr. Donahue is correct, and Mr. Stone probably would agree with me, that there's a large segment of the general electorate that is alienated and angry with government, promising and not delivering. The problem with both Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump and others is that the rhetoric can be inspiring, emotional, even the insults appeal to a certain part of the brain. But when they're actually telling people how they will solve the problems that Mr. Donahue rightly talked about, the solutions and the ability to get things done are lacking. That will come through in the general election more than in the primary season.
Roger Stone, a subject near and dear to your heart, dirty tricks. I noted at the outset the reputation that South Carolina has, and yet thus far in South Carolina, humor is a card that Ted Cruz is playing. Take a look at a piece of this commercial run by Ted Cruz already.
Look, I got the Trump action figure. No, wait, it's huge. What does he do? He pretends to be a Republican.
He pretends to be a Republican. Here's my question, Roger, for you. What's more effective, dirty tricks or humor?
Well, I saw that entire ad. I frankly think it was most ineffective because it hit on eminent domain. At a time when we have Americans being beheaded abroad, when our illegal immigrants are murdering and raping people, when our economy is in the toilet, when there are no jobs, I don't think anyone is voting on eminent domain. In fact, most voters don't even know what it is. So you're going to have a slugfest in South Carolina. Reports I heard last night of phone banks calling voters, telling them that Donald Trump is pro-abortion, a lie. Ted Cruz says he knows nothing about it, yet the phone calls are conducted by a company founded by his campaign manager. This is part and parcel of South Carolina politics. I frankly think that anyone who knows Donald Trump should not take lightly his threat to sue Ted Cruz over the question of his constitutional eligibility. Don't hold your breath. I think that lawsuit is coming.
I want to switch to the Democratic side of the aisle. Lanny, the math, the delegate math. I must be missing something. Bernie Sanders tied your candidate in Iowa. He beat her in New Hampshire. Look at this tally. How does she have 468 to his 53 delegates at this stage?
Well, there's something called superdelegates, who are the elected officials, members of Congress, members of the Democratic National Committee, that are automatically entitled to vote as delegates at the National Convention. But as we discovered in the '08 campaign, while many of those superdelegates were for Hillary Clinton. By the end of the process, when Barack Obama was the clear leader enough to capture the nomination, the superdelegates followed the lead of the voters. So it's premature to draw conclusions about those numbers. But what it does say, if it's Senator Sanders working in the U.S. Senate, has never had a single member of the Senate endorse him for president, and he described Ted Kennedy's immigration reform measure of 2007 as a way to slavery of people who are of the working class, or some such reference to slavery, about Ted Kennedy's immigration reform bill, he will have to be accountable for that in Nevada. So the superdelegates will ultimately, at the end of the process, Michael, reflect the popular and delegate vote. It's a little too early,
Lanny,
to jump to conclusions after just two caucus and an election.
Lanny, I said something to Sean Spicer that I'd like to repeat to you. There was a debate Thursday night. Thursday, as the debate was unfolding, there was a story emblazoned on the homepage of the Washington Post, a revelation that a subpoena had arrived at the Clinton Foundation and that it came from the Inspector General's office of the State Department. It didn't even warrant a question. I don't understand that. I don't think Hillary Clinton is benefiting when it doesn't get discussed, because you know the internals show that she's got a problem of honesty and trustworthiness among even Democrats. So would you have liked questions that would have been asked about that?
I said this to you on a program where you had the former Attorney General of the United States, that to suggest the slightest bit of wrongdoing is inferred from a subpoena from one individual, much less no evidence of wrongdoing, much less nothing else, and that should be brought up at a national debate. Sure, she should say exactly what I just said. A subpoena, you're a lawyer, you're going to infer what from a subpoena? So the fact that the innuendo about a subpoena, about a foundation that's done so much good all over the world, has nothing but innuendo behind it, no facts. If you think that's an issue that should be brought up at a national debate, I would respectfully disagree. But in terms of my responding, I would say no conclusion whatsoever from the fact of a subpoena. None.
Roger Stone, when the Washington Post has a front page story saying that the Inspector General's office of the State Department has issued a subpoena to the Clinton Foundation, I'm sure you agree with me that it warrants some discussion.
There's only one candidate for president who's currently under federal investigation. She has erased her emails, which I suspect show the nexus between the Clinton Foundation and the State Department and the pay-for-play that was going on. The latest state filings and federal filings by the Clinton Foundation are permeated with fraud. You haven't heard the end of this issue. I actually think Hillary Clinton would be stronger for having confronted this. Having softball debates in which these issues are not raised is not beneficial to her, because you can bet that these issues will be raised in the fall.
So that was my point. That was my point. Listen, you get the final word, Lanny. 30 seconds, then I have to roll.
I am laughing in pain, not at you, Mr. Stone. I only can respect your opinion. But I'm laughing at the notion that the false statement that someone is under investigation, which is false, the New York Times withdrew that headline, and the fact that we're inferring anything with use of fraud, conclusory words without facts, is what demagogic Republicans would say about Whitewater for 7 years after an investigation ended up zero. So to your viewers, not one fact underlies the innuendo you just heard from Roger Stone.
Lanny Davis and Roger Stone.
Let's revisit this after the FBI director recommends her indictment.
Speculation and wishful thinking isn't a fact, Roger Stone. You're a partisan, hatchet man Republican.
To be continued.
Okay. Can't we all just get along? Thank you, Lanny. Thank you, Roger.